Three, two, one. The second round of the OHL playoffs begin tomorrow, so all four series will get underway. I've already done the playoff preview videos for those four matchups. You can find them here on the channel. I actually have a playlist set specifically for the 2025 OHL playoffs, so if you haven't seen those yet, you can always head on over there. But in the meantime, I wanted to catch up on some news items around the Ontario Hockey League, as it was a pretty exciting day yesterday for Zayne Parekh of the Saginaw Spirit, as he's been called up to join the Calgary Flames of the National Hockey League. Typically, when a season is done for junior players, they'll join the American Hockey League team of the teams that drafted them. But Parekh going right up to the big club. Of course, the Calgary Flames right now in the thick of it when it comes to a push for that final wild card spot in the NHL's playoff picture. And it's uncertain at this point if Parekh will get any ice time in the next couple of games as this team fights it out for that final playoff spot. But what great experience this is going to be for Parekh, who had yet another amazing season with the Saginaw Spirit. This past season, 61 games, he compiled 33 goals, 74 assists, good for 107 points. In his last two seasons, he's put in over 200 points. Parekh getting the job done in the Ontario Hockey League. And next season is going to be the big question mark, because for Parekh, he can either be in the NHL or the OHL. So for next year, I would imagine the Calgary Flames will probably give a long look at Parekh to decide whether or not he stays with the big club or goes back to the OHL. But if he does come back to the Ontario Hockey League next year, we could be looking at history being made for Zayne Parekh for a defenseman. Right now, he sits 18th overall in all-time points for a defenseman with 240. He's under 100 points away from Rick Corvo, who has the all-time record for defensemen, 329 points. So if Parekh plays close to a full season next year, he could rewrite the history books when it comes to a defenseman with points. Ryan Ellis, if you're wondering, he's second overall in defenseman points in the OHL with 314. And then Andre Benoit, he's third with 299. Brian Fogarty, 293 points. That's fourth. And fifth overall in defenseman is Chris Felix with 277 points. So Zayne Parekh could join some elite company when it comes to the Ontario Hockey League next year. And then the other question remains, does he return to the Saginaw Spirit, or do the Spirit look to move on from him? As Saginaw, of course, losing out in the first round of the playoffs this year. What does this team do going forward? This year, there was a lot of questions about Misa and Parekh. They ultimately decided to keep those two. They had a great finish to the regular season, just falling short in that series against the Erie Otters. So that question is going to come back next year if Parekh has returned to Saginaw. But still, it'd be kind of cool to see if Parekh does come back to the OHL, if he could challenge for top spot in points by a defenseman in the Ontario Hockey League history books. Now, there have been a few signings now that some teams have been eliminated from the playoffs. We're going to start off with the Sudbury Wolves, as Kieron Walton has signed his NHL entry-level contract with the Winnipeg Jets. Kieron Walton had an outstanding season, leading the Sudbury Wolves in goals with 38, 54 assists, and 92 points. There was a couple times where Walton kind of faded a little bit due to injury, but he was pretty solid out on the ice and contributing on a semi-regular basis for the Sudbury Wolves. Still well over a point per game. But still, congratulations to Kieron Walton, who was a big piece for the Sudbury Wolves last season. And sticking with the Sudbury Wolves, Nathan Villeneuve. He has also signed his NHL entry-level contract, that being with the Seattle Kraken. And for Villeneuve, he set career highs last year in assists with 70. He also recorded 36 goals. So Villeneuve, another strong season for him with the Sudbury Wolves and being rewarded. So he'll be joining the Coachella Valley Firebirds in the American Hockey League. Well, I should have mentioned that Kieron Walton, he'll be joining the Manitoba Moose of the American Hockey League. So their careers will continue, or their seasons will continue, and we'll now try that next level just to get that experience of professional hockey, and then we'll have to wait and see what transpires for next season. So two Wolves signing their entry-level contracts, and sticking with the Seattle Kraken, they've also signed Andrei Loshko from the Niagara Ice Dogs as he signed his NHL entry-level contract. Loshko is a great story because, remember, he was picked up over waivers after being released from his team, the Chicoutimi, in the QMJHL, and then was fantastic joining Niagara, one of the top face-off players in the OHL this past season, and he's been rewarded for his efforts after getting 34 goals, 36 assists in 67 games of work with Niagara Ice Dogs. So Loshko, he's also going to report now at the Coachella Valley Firebirds on an amateur tryout for the remainder of the season, and then he'll go on from there. So Loshko, I was really impressed, even in the playoffs between the Niagara Ice Dogs and the Barrie Colts. He was a player that was, quite noticeable out on the ice. And like I said, great in the face-off circle as well. So congratulations to Walton, Villeneuve, and Loshko, who are the latest players to sign their NHL entry-level contracts. Also, Nathan Day of the Flint Firebirds. I forgot to mention that here, that he is signed with the Edmonton Oilers and then went off to the ECHL. I believe it was ECHL, and he recorded a shutout in his first game. So even Nathan Day of the Flint Firebirds having an impact after moving on to the American Hockey League. So some big news for those players, as I'm sure we're going to hear some more signings in the couple of weeks leading up to the NHL draft. But these players, they deserve it. They've done a great job this season. It's too bad their teams fell short in the postseason, but it is just a part of the game, and we'll see what happens next in their careers. And finally, the city of Cornwall has decided to go forward with their renovations for the Cornwall Civic Complex. That work will begin May 5th. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, it's been brought to our attention that the Ontario Hockey League is looking at expansion. They announced back in the fall that it's aggressive expansion, and that was when we were hearing that two teams from the USHL were looking to move to the OHL, and that was Muskegon and Youngstown. But we've had a couple of cities come forward saying that they've been in contact with the OHL or they would like to bring the OHL to their community. And that's exactly what Mayor Justin Towndell did back in December. If you'll remember, he had a radio interview where he was on record saying that Cornwall is ready for the Ontario Hockey League if they're expanding, and they're going to do whatever they can to attract an OHL team, and that includes renovations to the Civic Complex. So what they're doing is they're redoing the main entranceway, they're doing some repairs to the roof, and they're also updating the boards and the arena floor, so bringing it up to standards. So keep an eye on this Cornwall situation, and we still don't know how many teams the Ontario Hockey League is looking to add. When you look at the Western Hockey League, they're just adding Penticton and Chilliwack, so they're going to have 24 teams in the Western Hockey League. So does the OHL also look to reach the 24-team limit? So you'll get Muskegon and Youngstown potentially, and then Cornwall and maybe Niagara Falls, New York. That's the other city that we've had confirmation from their municipal leaders that they've been in talks with the OHL. But I just wanted to bring that up here because I think this is a step towards Cornwall potentially being an expansion city for the Ontario Hockey League in the future. We don't know any timelines at this point when expansion may take place. We do know that there's been talks and expansion is on the radar. And I think Cornwall would be a great fit for the Ontario Hockey League. They used to have the Royals, and since the Royals moved and the Belleville Bulls relocated, there is a void in Eastern Ontario. You have the Ottawa 67s and Kingston Frontenacs, who are the furthest east. You put Cornwall in there, and you've now got three teams that could really help with road trips. I know right now when teams come from the west to travel east, they typically do Peterborough, Kingston, Ottawa, which is fine. But it used to be you would get Belleville, Kingston, Ottawa road trips because you had those three teams along that corridor. So if you get Cornwall in there, that'll solve that travel issue there for both Ottawa and Kingston. But still, I think we're probably a few seasons out before any sort of expansion is confirmed. Maybe as early as next season. Maybe we'll find out about an expansion team on the way. But we'll still have to follow along and see what happens next. But yeah, but in the meantime, that's how I see it from the booth. Wanted to do a quick news video on this as some exciting times for players now signing those contracts, and also Zayne Parekh being called up to the Calgary Flames. I think this is pretty exciting times for these players that are continuing their careers in hockey. So again, thank you very much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Talk to you again soon.